Hello, trading has closed on the 21st of May, 2024. We always start with our disclaimer. We'll go over our calls and then we'll make some predictions. This is my trading plan for tomorrow, which is Wednesday, May 22nd. Again, I'm busy all week and I most likely won't be doing any trading. Also, my calls can be wrong. Any trade you make should be made at your own risk. Don't forget the next 2 days, David is having a free, real-time analysis of what's going on in the market. He did have a preliminary workshop today, and if you missed it, you can still access that workshop here. Reminder for people who aren't used to my system, my stuff calls targets. It doesn't give entries or exits, even though we should have support and resistance at these prices. And one example was the optional call we had yesterday, which was 53.2202. I thought it might not print. It doesn't have to because it was optional, but it did print, and there was resistance at that level, so we stopped at the resistance area. Resistance doesn't have to hold, of course, but you're at resistance. There's a new target from today's trading, 53.0662, and unless we gap up smartly, the rules call for that to print. Now, today was the pattern with the early low, and tomorrow should be the pattern with the early high. And this is just to review what we said. We really won't have everything we need for a top here, except we haven't started dropping, and until we do start to drop, call can be wrong, and the longer we go, the less enthusiastic about the call I am, especially since I have much higher targets for later in the year, but until it's killed, I'm going to stick with it. During the day, MEJT says this move is false. The price would retrace, which they did. Optional target was to undercut the dash line. We undercut it. That was support. Now MEJT says this move is false. Gives us the target 53.0662. We still have resistance from this fan line as well as the other things we pointed out in the last few videos. Now I have this as the count to make the fibs work, but again, it's not the only count. What would happen if you moved this 4 back to here? There wouldn't be a good fib ratio of this last way, but there doesn't have to be, and there would be a good ratio of this last fib up alone. So let's move this 4 to here and see what we come up with. Well, if that's your alternate 4, you can count this as 5 waves up. And the only way to make it work is to count this as an ending diagonal triangle. And of course, when you have ending diagonal triangles, the pattern need not have a Fibonacci relationship to prior patterns. Now again, just because that works doesn't mean something else won't. But if that's the right count, and we're not going to know that until tomorrow, if that's the right count, we're going to drop pretty much right from the open. So if we drop right from the open, and futures are flat as I'm recording this. So if that happens, I would tend to believe it because we have everything we need for a top, other than the fact that we haven't started dropping. And if we don't drop from here right away, or pretty soon after the open, I would just remember it's not the only count. Well, tomorrow's pattern has a early high, regardless of where we open. Typically, it's a rally day with a high in the final hour. Failures a straight line drop. We have a lower target. If we don't keep up smartly, the rules call for it to print. The volatility index, the VIX, at its lowest level in over 4 years. Now, the VIX represents the time premium people are willing to pay to buy puts. So the retail customers just aren't willing to spend a lot of money to buy puts, and these folks are usually wrong. Now, it isn't a pinpoint indicator. It doesn't mean you can drop, doesn't obligate you to drop tomorrow, but it does show retail customers have an excessive level of optimism, and these folks usually are wrong. Furthermore, the industrials had a big rally today, 66 points. Transports had a big drop of 257, and that's the kind of non-confirmation, which I didn't spell right. We will change that. That's the type of non-confirmation which often is seen at tops. Now, until we start down, it's still possible the top here, the call for a top isn't going to work. I still have much higher prices for later in the year. And if you maintain the sharp gap higher, it's going to be difficult to reconcile with my negativity over the short term. It just doesn't fit if that happens. However, the only piece that's missing for a drop starting right here is for us to stop consolidating and start dropping. So if we gap up smartly and hold it, I'm just probably wrong, which can happen. There's no indicator I know that works every time. But if we drop right from the open, I have all these lower targets starting with 5306.62 and not stopping there. Now, I don't know how we're going to open. But if we drop smartly right from the open, I would tend to believe it, because tomorrow's pattern either rallies into the close, sometimes it'll spill over into Thursday, or it drops in a straight line. And I've been waiting for the market to drop from here without success, but it might all work out tomorrow. Time hasn't run out yet. It's the pattern with the early high. We start dropping from the beginning, it's a long way down, and if we gap up here, then my idea probably isn't going to work. So we'll have to see how we open tomorrow. Once again, I'm busy most of the day. I'm probably not going to be able to risk any of my own money on this, but that's what I see for tomorrow, and that's the end of today's call.